worries.
Yeah, we just appreciate your time, man. You know that. Come on now.
All right, great.
All right, here we go.
Thanks.
1045 The Team, your home for New York sports. We're joined by our friend Marc Berman from the New York Post. And Marc, let's get right down to it. What's the full story on Derrick Rose? What do we know?
Well, I mean, knowing Derrick for the last several months, he's definitely very sensitive and I think a little mentally fragile. I think he's had a lot of incidents in Chicago that he regrets. And, you know, I believe there is a family issue, and I believe that he has a terrible sense of judgment. I think he's maybe a little unhappy with the way things are going in New York, and that's why maybe he didn't pick up the phone. But I think he's lacking in judgment, and he went back to Chicago, which wasn't the sin. The sin was not calling the Knicks and then not even answering their calls. It's kind of, well, it's inexcusable. But I don't think, I mean, the Knicks don't believe it's a team issue. They believe that he has a lot of personal issues going on in his life. You know, he's living alone in New York, and he's away from his son, who's 4 years old, for the first time. And I think he's kind of lonely here, as much as he talks about loving playing for the Knicks. I think he's having some issues.
What's the punishment now for the New York Knicks? Is it a fine and also possible suspension later on this month?
I mean, the fine has been announced, and we're trying to find out if it's the standard. They could go through a term called failure to render services, which is 1/110th of his $21 million salary. So, you know, that's a nice fine. But I don't think there'll be a suspension unless something else happens. You know, he's obviously on a short leash at this point. And, you know, I've been writing about this, you know, potential later on. Maybe they offer him a contract extension before he turns free agent on July 1st. Well, that's not happening. And I think the only way he comes back as a Knick long term is if they're desperate and they can't get anyone else.
Marc Berman with us right now at the New York Post on 1045 The Team. Yeah, you bring up the contract, and I see a lot of people are thinking about that. This is a contract year for D. Rose. It really couldn't be going any worse, could it?
Well, it was going very well up until probably a couple of weeks ago. You know, that the civil trial went as well as could be expected in the bottom line. But, you know, he missed 2 weeks of training camp, and that's what's mind-boggling to me, that Derrick doesn't realize, like, he put the team out in training camp. They got off to a slow start, and I think he would even admit part of the reason was he was away from the team for the 2 weeks, and they didn't get a chance to bond. And maybe it's still hurting them now defensively. They never got cohesion. It's training camp when you have all those practices. Once the season starts, it's, you know, one practice a week, especially in this month of January. There's so many games. So he put them out and inconvenienced them during training camp. And then to do this while they're losing, it's really just so poor. I can't imagine Phil Jackson will ever forgive him for this, and that's why I just don't believe there will be any long-term situation with Derrick and the Knicks.
Marc, when you look at the Knicks as a whole right now, compared to last year, it kind of has that same feel for me, where I had a lot of hope early, and then the wheels kind of came off. Are you seeing the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's identical. They were 22-22 when the wheels fell off last January, probably about January 20th, when they started their slide. It coincided, ironically, with Lance Thomas getting injured. He was playing so well off the bench. But now it started earlier. You know, they were 14-10 when we were out west after the Lakers victory, and now they're 4 games under 500, and they may even lose to the Sixers tonight. It's been such a turn of events. We asked Carmelo about it this morning, and he says, yeah, he's seen this happen the last 2-3 years, and he doesn't think this situation is the same, but, we got to right it now. And he says it's been so tense the last few days, everyone's just got to exhale.
Is there any hope they turn it around? Is tonight almost a sign that if they lose to Philadelphia, a franchise that struggled for years, it's rock bottom? Or could this be a bright spot if they get a victory?
Well, it's definitely rock bottom, but they could fall further past rock bottom if that's possible. That's how the Knicks operate. But yeah, it's rock bottom with a loss to the Sixers. Although they've been playing a little better of late, they need this victory desperately. There's no excuses. They're all healthy. We all said, if the Knicks are healthy, they're going to be a good team this year. And they were a good team when they were healthy at 14-10. When they've had injuries to one of their top 4 starters, they've really struggled, so there's no margin for error. But getting back to tonight, everyone's here. They're desperate. They should blow the Sixers out of the building, bottom line.
Mark, I just want to go back to Derrick Rose for a bit. We talked about and we heard stories about him going back to Chicago to be with his family, but we know from a media side of it, we've heard a lot of reports from other situations where stories didn't make sense. We wondered, well, why did this happen a certain way? You're in a spot where you're in the locker room every day. Are your colleagues going to follow up and ask Derrick Rose, Derrick, why did you go there? What was the situation? Because it's difficult digging into an athlete's personal life in this situation.
Well, he spoke yesterday, and then we got him again at the morning shoot-around, and he continues. I think it would be nice if he would actually explain what the family crisis was with his mother. He hasn't said if she was ailing or, if she got into some argument. It's a mystery, and that's why, because he won't be specific about it, and he says it's too personal to get into, that's why there's a lot of speculation that, maybe it was him just missing home and missing his family and missing Chicago and just being mentally unstable. I wish Derrick would at least be a little more specific. The Knicks do believe that it's not about the team. So even if it's about him, it's not about him and the team. He doesn't think there's really a big issue with Jeff Hornacek. Yes, he was upset a little bit that he got benched in the fourth quarter in Milwaukee, but they won the game. So, it's more about him and his personal life just not being proper in his eyes right now.
New York Post Marc Berman with us. Mark, I hope they turn around because I can hear more joy in your voice when the Knicks are good than I do right now.
Yeah, it's just depressing to be around this team. And Carmelo said this morning, when it rains here, it pours and pours. And the Knicks are just one soap opera after another. Every season you think it's going to get better, and then it just deteriorates.
Well, let's hope for one of those romantic arcs that make everybody happy.
I doubt it, though.
All right, Mark, we appreciate your time, man. And like I said, hopefully they do something that can give you some fun to write about.
Yeah, hopefully they will make a playoff push at least this year. So we'll see.